is a weekly exploration into a new philosophy of money through psychology, philosophy, and practical wisdom. In this episode of the Mindful Money Podcast.
And that was a very powerful place to go to. And, in that moment of what do I want, the only change that I could make was in my mind.
All right, welcome back everyone to this week's episode of the Mindful Money Podcast. I'm so excited for today's content and today's guest. I have with me Luis Congdon, who's been featured on the front page of iTunes, ranked number 1 in New and Noteworthy for over 8 weeks, has had guests like Marianne Williamson, Gay Hendricks, Russell Brunson, and more. Luis has been an incredible leader in the podcast space. You've probably heard of his podcast, and he's doing even more incredible things the more I watch him on social media. So I'm really excited to welcome to the show here, Luis Congdon. Welcome.
Awesome to be here. Thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. So, most of our listeners have probably heard of you or seen your stuff, but just in the case that they haven't, tell us a little bit about you and your background and where you're from and what you do now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, not too long ago, I was homeless as an adult for the second time in my life. And then I started podcasting, started using Facebook organically, and really learned how to build profitable relationships. And now I basically teach people how to utilize their relationships, utilize podcasting and social media as a way to monetize, make money, and create a thriving business. And I'm really fortunate enough that I get to travel the world. I run a profitable 6-figure business with my partner, Kamala Chambers. We sell digital courses, coaching, have a 5-time-a-week podcast, 1-time-a-week YouTube channel, and have been featured in multiple major publications like Entrepreneur Magazine, Huffington Post, Inc. Magazine, and we're just, we're growing a lot, and it's really exciting the times that we live in with the internet and with this, how amazing this time period is. Really incredible. And if you're in business, it can be really easy to get out there, find clients, build a thriving business, and have a lifestyle that allows you to travel the world if you'd like, or stay at home and have more time off with the family.
Yeah. So what changed for you though? I mean, you were homeless and now you've got a 6-figure business. I think a lot of people that are listening have that desire to just kind of break out.
Yeah. Well, what really changed for me, honestly, like at first when you're broke and you're homeless and you're kind of unhireable because, for some reason or another, you just can't hold down the 9-to-5 job, whether it's being fired repeatedly like I got to, or being, fed up with jobs and leaving, or just struggling to find jobs, right? Because it's kind of getting harder and harder for people to find jobs that pay them what they're really worth. We just have a lot more people on the planet now, and the job market's really flooded. So for me, what really shifted after being homeless for close to a year, I was sleeping in my car, sleeping in my in a park in my car, and on different friends' couches, and I barely had enough money to put gas in the car. So most of the time, it was just kind of parked in a particular block that I knew where it wouldn't get towed. And what really changed for me is my mindset. That's when you're first trying to figure something out. That's the only thing that you have if you're broke and down and out, is that you have your mind, which is very powerful. So the first thing that I had to change was me. And then from there, the things that I did, the ways that I behaved, the people that I connected with, the choices that I made, those all started to have a compound interest.
I like that you use that compound interest. What's the purpose of money to you now, and how is that different from when you were a kid?
Well, money back when I was a kid was something that was lacking, and it was basically something that you could use to buy food, maybe buy shelter. I was homeless as a child, so I didn't really think of it that way. And then after a while, it resembled power. It resembled an ability to do things. Oftentimes, it resembled an inability to do things because I didn't have enough of it. And now as an adult, I see it as a spiritual tool to be able to share more with the world, to exercise and practice your will in the world. And I was talking to a friend recently today where I said, having plenty of money makes me feel really safe. And I feel a little embarrassed to say that because I really have taken a lot of time to study spirituality and to try to, understand happiness and joy. And money shouldn't be such a strong dictator for us. And I'm in no way money hungry in the sense that I need more to consistently be happy, but I do find that having enough is important. Having enough to stay in the place that in a home that I enjoy, having enough to be able to share some with friends and family, to be able to go out to eat, to buy some extra little luxuries, and just to have enough to pay for the necessities. And I'm still very much wired into that program. If you took all my finances away, I think that I would be a little bit distraught. And I think most humans probably would be. But for me, it's hard to kind of maybe admit that out loud because, I'd like to say that if you took everything away from me, as far as finances and the things that I own, that I'd be completely at peace. But, one guy put it pretty well is money won't buy happiness, but it's a good down payment. And I think that we need, finances are very important. And, one of the things that I'm writing about right now for some articles that I want to send over to Mind, Body, Green is that, spiritual people, good people, oftentimes equate money with this sense of evil. But if we just looked at money as an energy, and if you have it, you have energy to therefore, basically exchange that energy for other things that fuel in other ways, then money isn't a good or bad thing. It's just energy. Like, did you get enough sleep? Did you drink enough water? Do you have enough money in your bank account? And I don't do too well if I don't sleep enough. If you sleep deprive me for long enough, I would not feel very good. And that would affect my happiness. And if I look at finances that way, then yeah, it's very important that I have enough. It's important I have enough water. It's important I have enough love, enough time with my family and friends. So it's just part of the pie of this whole big circle of happiness, or the tools that allow us to go out and be happy.
Nice. I love how you broke that down to energy, and I love how that analogy that you just made about the food and the water and that equation, I think that's really powerful. I haven't heard anybody else sum it up that easily before. So where do you think there's this transition then from finances and people having money to prosperity and people thriving? Your podcast called The Thriving Launch, immediately I kind of go there in my head when I hear about it.
Well, Thriving Launch, the podcast, is really important for me because it is the joining between the spiritual, the family, the philanthropist and volunteer side of me, nonprofit side of me, joining the business side of me together and giving a free resource, tool, show, education to allow people to have that holistic experience of kind of this unified message. So it's not just, I'm business over here and I'm the relationship guy over here. And, there's this chasm between me. The idea behind Thriving Launch is an opportunity for me to express the fullness and welcome everyone else into that.
Nice. It's very well-rounded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's rewind a little bit to when you talked about your programming, your money programming, right before you broke it down into, it's like energy. Mm-hmm. You said something like, if I didn't have money, it was around the freedom, right? I wouldn't feel as free, or, you were talking about if all your finances got taken away, the mindset that you would go into. Where do you think that programming comes from?
I'm not really sure. I think that all of us, I'm not really sure where that programming comes from, but in talking to you about it, I kind of feel like, for me, I kind of hit a nail on the button, and it actually makes me want to go and write about it a little bit more. Is that there's nothing wrong with that sense of wanting to have enough finances, and that money is important, because so is sleep, so is food, so is touch. If you're a sexual being, so is sexuality. Like, all of this stuff is very important. And why does money get cut into this other thing? Like, oh, well, we shouldn't think about that. And I think that through that process, maybe even kind of have been programmed by society. Maybe, I don't know where the programming comes from, where money is something we can't talk about, right? I can tell you about my weight and my health, right? At least as a guy. Between women, maybe women don't want to publicly talk about that so much, but as a society, we don't really feel comfortable talking about finances. And why is that? So, instead of turning the conversation from, oh, well, that's, maybe you want to look into yourself around the finance conversation and why you feel that way, I would turn it around and say, well, why is it a bad conversation to have, and why can't we talk about it? And maybe that's part of the current dis-ease that's happening in the world, is that we can't talk about finances, and we turn our shoulders and we use debit cards so that we don't even really see how much money is coming out of the account, and we don't log in and see how much we spent that day, and we don't balance our checkbooks. When you have a healthy relationship with something, it seems like you'd be interested in measuring it and talking to people about it.
Yeah. It's almost like this direct tie to people's happiness too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
That's
people.
Right.
Yeah. So then how much do you think money plays a role in that kind of happiness? Like, what I've seen is people get rich and they're happy, but I've also heard this quote that money doesn't make you anything more than what you are. It just amplifies it. It's like, how are those intertwined for you, the money and the happiness and living?
Well, if I can have enough food and have a home that's really comfortable for me, and then I can also share abundantly with others, then I get to experience kind of the full capacity of my abundance.
That's really well said. So it's almost like if we manage money like we would manage any other resource, what I'm hearing you say is it'll come to a sort of it'll amplify our ability to be abundant, just like giving food would, or giving anything else would.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that prosperity to you, or is that something else?
I think being able to give, to share, to experience and overflowing is definitely a part of prosperity, for sure. And we can share in so many different ways. We don't have to give in ways that are certainly monetary, right? My dog can never give me money, but he gives me other things. And I just want to make that, because, it feels like we're talking about a lot about finances, but really where I'm going with it is just about the energy of abundance, and finances are a piece of that. But it's a small piece, but a very important piece that we oftentimes have been taught to kind of ignore, especially as spiritual people who want to do good in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of spiritual people that really want to have an impact, but are stuck and aren't. They just aren't. What advice would you give them?
I would say, regardless of where you're at in life, your results are in a lot of ways going to be dictated by the thoughts that you're carrying around. So start practicing thoughts that are supportive of the results that you want.
Can you give an example?
Well, for me, when I was sleeping on my friend's couch, and I'd slept in a park a few times. I slept in my car during the winter.
This was just a couple of years ago you're talking about too, right?
Yeah, this is 4 or 5 years ago now. So not that far ago. And it was during up here in Washington. It's not. It's cold during January and February, and it's not easy to sleep in a sedan during that time. So, yeah. Well, it was my experience, and now it's just like it's just a story. And that's a big piece too, is getting to a place where the past pains are just stories, and hopefully they don't have a residue. I have other things that have residue in my life, but that part of my life to me is just the story, and it's a story that allows me to connect with people and share something. But it's not something that's laden with an emotional burden or some kind of residue from the past where I'm hurt about it or upset at the world. And one of the biggest healing techniques that we can do is, if you're not experiencing the results that you want in your life, then it's likely an effect of what you've been thinking in the past. Because a lot of times our future, which our present, is a future of some past. So a lot of times.
Hang on. Say that again. Our present is a future of some past.
Mm-hmm, that's nice. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the results of today are oftentimes, just a result of what you've been thinking about yesterday or a couple months ago or a couple years ago. And so if you're not enjoying that present that you're living, then, I just advise people to spend some time considering what they really want. And for me, I got to a place where I was in so much pain, college educated guy, world traveler, bilingual, had been a director at a company, and I ended up being so broke I couldn't afford to put gas in my car. I was living off an EBT card, which is like welfare, and sleeping in parks and trying to get by every day. Yeah. And I realized that was just a result of decades of a very big fear of being poor. I grew up poor as a very young child in Colombia, and there was a lot of unconscious and very conscious, because I knew it was there, thoughts and entertaining of what is it going to be like when this happens. And so it had happened. And so after a while, I lived in that pain in such a compressed, tight, depressed kind of way that I just got to a place where I said, I'm sick of this. What's something else that I would like to experience? Because I can't go on living this way anymore. And so every morning I'd wake up and I would listen to some kind of thing on YouTube that talked about the very thing I wanted to experience. So, I would type in things on YouTube like, have enough money. What's it like to be rich? Videos of rich people. And I would watch things that allowed me to entertain thoughts that were more congruent with what I wanted, right? So having what you don't want is a great opportunity to see the contrast of what you do want. Because, we see black because there's white. We see white because there's black. So through the contrast of a negative experience, so if you have a partner who's very mean to you and abusive, after a while, you're like, God, I'm getting sick of being abused. And what most of us do is we just keep complaining about that person and what's happening, when what we're really being offered is an opportunity to really clearly see what we would like as well. So, while we get what we don't want, we also get an opportunity to see in a more stark and clear and powerful way of what we do want. So for me, I don't want to sleep on my friend's couch. I don't want to sleep in a park. I don't want to be so broke I can't afford to buy food. I don't want to be so broke that I'm ashamed to be around my friends and family and tell them how things really are for me. I don't want to be so ashamed that I can't even really afford to get on a bus and I'm feeling depressed. And after months of dreading the fact that my life was there, and saying, I don't want this, and talking about it within my head with other people, with my notepads, just always kind of like, I don't want this. Then it was like, well, what do I want? And that was a very powerful place to go to. And, in that moment of what do I want, the only change that I could make was in my mind. I can't, what I want right now is I want to have a job and I want to have income and I want to have enough to share. But crap, it's not happening right now. So the only change I can make is I want this, and what would it be like to have that? What do I need to start thinking, believing, doing, practicing to have that? And it all began with me. It all began in my head. So I'd wake up, I would practice different mindsets and thoughts and listen to things that allowed me to think about having enough. And then I would actually go outside and I'd walk down the street as far as I could on this one particular block. And I would just imagine, what's it like if somebody just handed me $500 right now? Or what if I just got $500 for 1 hour of coaching somebody? And what would it be like if I got paid so well, I just got an influx of 10 grand? And at the time, I'd only made, at the time, the most I'd ever been paid was $45,000 for 1 year, of work. So the idea of 10 grand in 1 month is, astronomical for that time. So, all right. So, man, I just got paid 10 grand. Oh my God, I can just buy this. I can buy that. I can get an apartment. I can, fill my car up with gas. I can buy food for my dog. And oh my God, it feels so good. And I'd go into that feeling as long as I could feel that thing. And as soon as it started feeling kind of fake, or I was like pretending too much, then I just stopped. Okay, cool. Practiced it. And I did that every day for about a month or so.
Wow.
And it is very important because I believe that our thoughts are like a radio transmitter, right? And through our thoughts, we're attracting things, very much like two people see each other in a room, and out of thousands of people, for some reason, these two people meet, right? It's like, why do two people in a big city like New York, why do two people somehow magically meet in a coffee shop, fall in love, and get married? There's something going on there. There's some kind of attraction happening, and it's not just the spoken and the seen. There's something else, and we all know that. We all know what it's like to fall in love with somebody, and it's deeper than just what everyone else is seeing. It's a very intimate, personal, experience, and it can't really be completely voiced because it's something deep, and I believe that it's like that with all experiences in life. Why does it have to be just like that with love?
Yeah, or money or anything.
That's right.
So it's like you went through this. Would I be wrong to say that visualization played a major role? Like, it sounds like that's what you started with, is just the inquisition and then visualizing.
That's right.
So what happened next? Like, I love, by the way, doing this for 30 days. That's a great exercise for the listeners out there, is if you spend just 30 days waking up every morning and very first thing, think about all those things that you want and what might happen if you got everything that you wanted, And I'm interested in two things, really: what you did next, and also what happened once all those things like feeding your dog and putting gas in the tank, like once your thoughts were past those, where did you go next with what you would do with, 10 grand? So you can...
Well, you don't need to hang on. The thing is that we think of time, and we think of the value of something is valued in time, right? So, hey, I'm going to pay you this much for 1 hour's worth of work. We're going to, but if you've ever been inside of a dream, time is non-existent. And you could have a dream that's really probably maybe 5-10 minutes long, but you go through this whole experience that could feel like days or hours. There's no telling what's happening inside of a dream. And I think that the process of imagining and visualizing what you want works very much the same way. I think that the main point behind this experience or practice that I'm suggesting is something that works really well, is that we don't get too wrapped up in how much time I'm investing in this. If I do it for an hour, is that going to be better than 2? And not certainly, right? So, because in a dream, we could dream for 10 minutes, but it's going to be very powerful. And I think that the world of mind, the world of creation, doesn't operate in the way that the world of clocks works.
The human experience of time.
Yeah. So I think more the idea behind it is you spend a little time pondering what you want. If you can feel it and go into it, wonderful. But the idea is just to spend some time contemplating what you would like.
Yeah, and the other theme I'm hearing in what you're saying is to think big, right? Because I can say I want my bills to be paid and I want food in my fridge, but if I stop there, and that's all I'm attracting.
That's right.
So, was podcasting the beginning of that manifestation for you? Like you visualized all these things, you in a way almost experienced them through those thoughts. What did you do next? How'd you get to where you are? I
don't really know, because all I know is that at some point those experiences, those thoughts then showed up in really interesting ways. So it's not like you practice these thoughts and then the world will reflect that back to you in some expected way. And it's kind of a mystery to me. All I know is that things started to really change dramatically after a few weeks of doing this. It might have been like 2 weeks. Out of the blue, this woman called me, and she called me on the phone. And I had just woken up, boom, grabbed my phone, didn't know who it was, and she said, "Hi, this is Catherine. I'm the executive director of one of the nonprofits that you signed up for, and I couldn't get you out of my mind." For some reason, we've been creating a new job, and your name kept popping up. Now, interestingly enough, a few months before that, I had applied to work at this organization, and Catherine had responded to me and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, Luis, like this is a nonprofit for women only, and so we only have women staff, and so I just wanted to let you know that we appreciate you writing in, but we need a woman to fulfill this position because you'd be working in women only kinds of places."
Right.
And so that's cool. I didn't respond to her. And then for some reason, a few months later, she kept thinking about me and was in the midst of creating a new position. I ended up getting hired for that job. And then a few months later, I met Kamala Chambers, and very serendipitously, met her. I didn't just, I'd known, I guess I knew who she was and we knew each other, but we had never spent time together. And this guy who I barely knew for some reason wrote me out of the blue, invited me to come and hang out. Kamala came, and her and I had a wonderful conversation about this, idea of running a business together, or not running a business together, but running businesses online. And then from there, we ended up joining together and running a business together, and then traveling the world. And a few years before that, I had this idea of what would it be like to travel to Thailand and have an automated business like like some of these guys talk about, where you have an online business and you get to be free of an office. And I had this vision. It seemed really cool. I completely left it alone. And when I met Kamala, we went to Thailand, Bali, Taiwan, Colombia, various places around the world. And again, that for me is proof that future, which is now my past, funny enough, but that future, was something that I had thought about years before. And then when I started spending time really thinking about, what if, very soon after, Kamala and I met each other and we went and traveled the world together. But it feels to me that I had created that future through entertaining it at some point in the past.
So what are you creating for your future now?
Yeah. We're doing a lot of different things. So I'm putting an immense amount of energy into this future, and I would say it's very much like the future that I was creating when I was really poor. More freedom. I think I'm kind of at a place where now part of my future includes a lot more giving. So just a couple days ago, I had the opportunity to go shopping and buy a bunch of items in bulk. And tomorrow we'll get together with a big group of friends and we'll make all these gift packages for these families. So my future includes, a growing business, a bigger email list, a bigger podcast, sponsors for the podcast, many more sponsors, many more connections, a published book that allows me to speak on different stages to share a little bit more of my story and not just the business elements of myself. A lot more income, a lot more giving, a wonderful home with Kamala, and a lot of what I already have, just more of it, I guess.
Nice. And I'm hearing this theme of giving, right? So from a place of scarcity, if I think about most of the people listening to this show, a lot of them are in a place where they are feeling like they don't have enough. They're feeling like they need to make more money. They're feeling like they can't make ends meet, and
that's right,
that they don't have the means to give. And for me, I know before I even started this show and went on my entrepreneurship journey, I had and still to some degree, like you said, have this big stigma around what's it like to be a millionaire, and what I'm arriving at. And I wonder what your take is on this. What I'm arriving at is this notion that all money is a means to give and to contribute. And people won't give me money and invest in me if I don't show how I'm giving back.
Definitely. That's great. Well, Zig Ziglar said something about, your pay is proportionate to the value that you're providing in the world.
Yeah. I love that quote. That's beautiful. And I love that you mentioned that money is energy. I've mentioned this on the show a couple times, but my business partner refers to money as an acronym. My own natural energy yield.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So the final question here. I think we've made a nice circle, and we've really come full circle to this idea. But what kind of world do you think we'd be living in if money as we know it never exists?
Well, money has always existed, whether it's been in the form of paper bills or in the form of two Indians or Native Americans, ancient people, however it is, trading sticks, bartering with fish and tools or rocks or seeds. So money really, it has just, what money has changed to coins, to paper bills, to debit cards, but it's still the same thing, right? I mean, at some point, if you were, like a Paleolithic man and you saw another guy who had something that you wanted and he had that and you had something, you look at each other and you probably say, hey, I've got some fish. You've got some sticks over there that I need. How about I trade you?
Yeah.
That's still money. We've just changed it into a physical dollar bill.
Yeah, good point. What I'm hearing you say is it would be pretty much the same with regard to the transaction aspect of things, and would really, no matter what era we're in, what area in this human invented thing we call time, it's just an exchange.
That's right.
Nice, man. Well, hey, it's been an incredible, I think, been an incredible journey with you here on the show, and I really, really appreciate your time and your message. And you exude sincerity and depth to a degree that I don't see in a lot of people. So I really appreciate you, and I thank you for coming on. How can people get in touch with you? If they want to connect with you and learn from you more, where can they go? What can they do?
Yeah, definitely. People can find out more about me at thrivinglaunch.com. There at Thriving Launch, you can find all my social media links. You can find out more about the podcast, any courses, programs. You can write me as well. I always love hearing from people. Just the other day, I had a couple emails from people writing me from different shows that I've been on. Absolutely love hearing from people. Honored to hear from you if you ever want to follow up or touch base. But more than anything, I hope this interview's, somehow made an impact in your life or made some kind of shift for you. Happy to see you over there at thrivinglaunch.com. And thank you so much for having me on the show today, Chris.
No problem, Luis. It's been a pleasure. And be sure to join us next week for the next episode of the Mindful Money Podcast. You've been listening to the Mindful Money Podcast, the podcast for people who want to align their money with their values. Love this show? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review. Want more incredible show content? Head over to mindfulmoneypodcast.com for show notes, past episodes, and a sneak peek at what's coming next. In next week's episode of the Mindful Money Podcast.
We're not made to be perfect, damn it. Just stop trying to do that. Stop trying to think that your life is going to be perfect.